Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou, coming to you a little bit later on in the day due to Mikel Arteta's press conference being in the morning. I figured there was no point in recording it, and then Mikel coming out 20 minutes, 30 minutes later and saying something that would completely change the headlines and the narrative. So I figured it would be best to wait. I hope to do it a little bit earlier. I was at work this morning, and on my way back, of course, on the day that you're in a rush to get back and do something, you have all sorts of train issues. I shouldn't joke about it. Apparently, there was an incident at a station nearby to me where there was a collision between the train and, I don't know if it was a car or hopefully not a person. I don't know. But yeah, that's why we're so late in the day. Hope everyone involved is okay. That's obviously the main thing. And, you can wait an extra half an hour for the pod. It's not the end of the world. We are here and we are going to unpick Mikel Arteta's press conference. Plus, we're going to react to the news that Arsenal have agreed to make a double signing. Yes, a double signing. Two twins are apparently coming into the Arsenal. We'll get into that story in just a little bit as well. Big hello to everybody who is with us in the live comments. A big hello to everybody who is listening to this, whether that be on Apple or Spotify. A few questions coming through already about what my lineup would look like against Brentford. I'm not giving that away on today's episode because that's what we do on our match day pods now. So in the morning, you'll hear from me. I'll give you my lineup, my team. I'll be honest, I'm still not set on it right now. I tried to think about this earlier when recording a show down at TalkSport, because I knew the question was going to come up, like, what do you do rotationally for a game like this? Like, do you, say, take Julian Timber out and put Ben White in? Do you leave Miles Lewis-Skelly in at left back, or do you bring Calafiori back in? Do you bring Leandro Trossard in if he's available? Do you bring Martin Odegaard? I suppose that's the biggest question, because I thought he came on and he made a difference at Chelsea the other day. And I'm not saying that I don't rate Emirates Stadium or that I don't want to see him play, but I do think that was a game very much geared towards Martin Odegaard's skill set rather than Emirates Stadium. And I think we really kind of felt that and saw that as the game developed. And I wasn't surprised when Eze came off, because for me, he played a bit part in that match. And again, there's no shame in that. It's horses for courses. Sometimes you got to pick the players that are better suited to giving you the advantages in whatever game state it is you're presented with. And I just didn't think that game in any way, shape or form was set up for Emirates Stadium. Look, knowing Mikel Arteta the way we know him as a manager, not personally, obviously, I'd be very, very surprised if Mikel picks a team that has Villa in mind at the weekend. Okay, we talk a lot about momentum, how important it is to him. We talk a lot about the fact that we can potentially, protect players by getting them off after 60, 70 minutes. Like, for example, if I'm looking at one area of the team where I feel like actually the players probably could do with a breather and with a break, it's probably in the center of midfield, Declan Rice and Zubimendi. But then I looked at it and I thought, well, Zubimendi only played about an hour at Chelsea the other day. And yes, it was an intense hour. It was a difficult hour. But, if he's got half an hour that remains in the tank because he didn't finish the game at Stamford Bridge, and that was largely because he was on a yellow card, probably more than anything else, then you kind of look at that and you go, well, then he should be fine to play against Brentford. And Brentford are a really physical side. We'll get into Brentford in a lot more detail on the show that we do tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about their style of play, what we can expect. But against a physical side like that, I think you need Declan Rice, number one. And I'm going to get accused of having an agenda here. I'm not sure I would throw Christian Norgard in from the start of a Premier League game. I'm just not sure I would do it. That's my view. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people in the chat saying we need to rotate. We need to do something. Like, we need to shake it up in some way, shape or form. We could do with refreshing things a little bit, but there's a fine line between rotating effectively and over-rotating, as we've discussed many, many times on this pod over the last year, 2 years. And I think that I've always said, if Arsenal are going to be successful this season, it's going to be largely based upon whether Mikel Arteta can get that right. Because in terms of personnel, we've got what's necessary. In terms of squad depth, we've got what's required. The big question is, can we manage the squad in the most effective possible way, which should, in theory, because of how strong the squad is, have us finishing with way more points than we did last season, and hopefully either winning the Premier League title or the Champions League, and maybe some domestic silverware as well. Maybe I'm being a bit greedy. I don't know. Anyway, look, let's reflect on what Mikel had to say in this morning's press conference. Obviously, injury news was at the top of the agenda. He said, I'm not going to be able to help you much today because we have another training session later on. Obviously, the press conference took part on Tuesday morning, but of course, there is a training session scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. He said, until that happens, we won't know what's going to happen with a few of the doubts we have. He was asked about William Saliba. He said he had a little niggle, so I think it's going to be a matter of days. So let's see if he's able to be there tomorrow. So he didn't rule William Saliba out from returning to the side for the game against Brentford. Now, interestingly, like, I'd rather have Saliba than not have Saliba in this game, obviously. But I'm also kind of okay with, if there's any risk around Saliba, leaving him out and making sure, being 100% that he's available for Villa at the weekend. Again, we talk loads about the Mosquera-Nketiah combination. You know, we have to put the context into that conversation, which is we were away against one of the best sides in the country, and by default, one of the best sides in Europe, the Club World Cup champions. They were buzzing after dismantling Barcelona there in midweek. They played with an energy, with a tempo, with a zip, with a directness, with an aggression that we don't often see from Chelsea. And they caused us a lot of problems. But again, look, the more I watch the game back, and I think I've definitely seen it once back in full. I'm probably just over halfway through my kind of second watch of the game. Granted, my second watch has been a little bit casual, like in that I'm sitting here at my desk, I'm doing some work, I've got the game on the screen here. And so I'm sort of looking up and down at it. But I think sometimes it's nice to get a feel for the game under very, very difficult, under very, very different circumstances and different and in a different emotional state, when you're not stressed, when you're not frustrated, you know the outcome already. You're just sort of analyzing it a little bit more. So, yeah, look, Mosquera and Nketiah, they weren't as bad as they were made out to be. I talked about it on the pod yesterday. I felt our big problem was the gaps in our shape. I felt our shape wasn't right. I felt that we could have made tactical adjustments in order to limit Chelsea and the threat and the dangers that they were posing. We didn't do that. That, for me, is on the manager more than any of the individual players. And so what I don't want to do is get into this territory where we're like, Nketiah and Mosquera, no, they can't play together. That was only the second time they played together, and the other time was in the League Cup against Brighton. So I feel like we have to cut them some slack. We've seen them both on an individual level come into the team and perform really, really well. It's about building that bond and that relationship. And, you know, with William Saliba, we can't afford to mess around with his fitness, particularly when we're without Gabriel. Like, we just can't. And so I hope that common sense prevails here. If he is fine, then play him by all means. And look, the truth is, we're not really going to know, are we? You know, that if he's in the starting lineup, I will assume that Arsenal are confident that he's okay. But I can't rule it out that there's a chance that maybe he was rushed or pushed back. And this is the problem with football analysis nowadays. And I talk about this a lot. You know, we often want a finger point. We often want to look at someone and say, you're the reason, you're the issue, you're the one that's to blame. But without all the information, you just can't do that, can you? It's like, you know, if you go to a court of law in this country, you have to be proven guilty, right? If there's insufficient evidence to convict you, you will not be convicted. And it doesn't mean that you didn't do it, but it just means that there isn't enough for those making the decision to be sure enough that you are the guilty party. So when we say things like, the reason we've got loads of injuries is because the training's too intense, or the reason we've got loads of injuries is because the players were snapping away at each other on the training pitch. You don't know that. Someone can roll their ankle pretty innocuously. Someone can overstretch when going to receive a slightly wayward pass. Like, there's loads and loads of things that can happen that, you know, we would never know about. And that's why sometimes people say I'm sitting on the fence, or I'm not willing to blame this person or that person. No, if I categorically know what the problem is, I'll be the first to call it out. But if I don't, I think it's dangerous to start going, it's his fault, it's his fault, it's his fault. Like, the amount of times I read stuff online, like, Arsenal's doctors must be this and that. And I think to myself, A, you don't even know who the doctor is. B, you have no idea what the doctor's role was in this. And I can bet you that there have been times where a doctor said, don't play him, or only give him 60 minutes, and the player's gone on to play 70 minutes, or the player's played because it's been a huge occasion and the player and the manager are both pushing for it. So I think we've got to be really, really careful with that. But great news that William Saliba's issue is expected to be something that keeps him out for a matter of days. And the fact that he wasn't ruled out of taking part against Brentford, I think, is a positive. On the latest, regarding Leandro Trossard, Mikel also said matter of days as well. This feels like a really Leo Trossard game, this one. Probably going to face a low block. Probably not going to be that much spacing behind them. Probably need a little bit more guile and creativity rather than the kind of explosive pace, for instance, of someone like Gabriel Martinelli. I don't know, man. Like, Noni Madueke would be an option on the left, I suppose, but I was really frustrated with his performance the other day. I'm sorry. Like, I know he came on as a sub. I know it was under difficult circumstances, playing against his former club and all the rest of it, but he really, really frustrated me the other day. Like, really frustrated me. And so, yeah, hopefully Trossard is back and he can play on that left-hand side for us. On Kai Havertz, Mikel said, and this is interesting, it's a matter of weeks. So this one's going to take a little bit longer. He says, let's see how it evolves in the next few weeks. He's doing really well. He's doing stuff on the pitch, but I think he needs some time. Now, obviously, we heard from Julian Nagelsmann, didn't we, that that he had suffered some sort of setback. At the time, that was not confirmed by Arsenal. Again, just looking at these comments, and I haven't read the whole thing back yet, and I've read it. I haven't listened to the whole thing back. I wasn't at the press conference. But Mikel does go on to say something on that setback. He says he was doing everything. He could not go to the next level. But now it feels like we've unlocked that. We're all desperate to have him. It's a player that personally I love so much for what he brings to the team. His character, his personality, I see him suffer being outside. His playing record is phenomenal. He's always been available, and I can't wait to have him back around the team playing now, because I think it's going to be a massive boost for the team. So this was the first time that Arsenal kind of opened up on this idea of Kai Havertz having suffered a setback. But even there, like, it doesn't sound like he went backwards. Like, it sounds like he just wasn't at the point. And listen, I haven't heard Mikel say it at the time of recording this. I've only read the answer. So forgive me if I'm misreading the kind of context of it all. But it sounds like he got to a point where they believed he was ready to take that next step. And when it came to pushing him, it just didn't happen or couldn't happen. Did he suffer some sort of minor muscular issue in them trying to push him, which is what has been described as the setback, possibly? But yeah, let's see how that goes. But we can't wait to get him back, because he just gives us options, and he gives us something very, very different. And a bit like Mikel Merino, I feel like he's a player whose intelligence, ability to sort of work in different roles and do different things probably went under the radar a little bit, and probably wasn't valued as much as it should have been when he first arrived at the football club. But now I think most people look at Kai Havertz and think this is a really, really important player. This is someone that we'd love to have back. He can share the load and the burden with Victor Gyökeres. Get Mikel Merino out of the centre forward role. Not that he's done it badly. Some would argue that he's done it better than some of the other guys. It's not that. It's just, it's not a natural fit for him. It isn't his natural position. And I'd quite like to see him be an option and kind of not the go-to when we're talking about that area of the pitch. Big Gabby's doing well, according to Mikel, but that is going to be weeks as well. Lots of talk about resting people. Obviously, Mikel said that we try to manage every case and every individual in relation to how they feel in the context of matches. All of that stuff is pretty much par for the course. Like I don't think there's anything particularly important in the rest of the press conference, but if you want to go and read the full transcript, you can do that on arsenal.com, or of course you can go over to YouTube, search Haters TV, and you'll be able to watch the whole press conference back. And the best thing about Haters is they put timestamps, so if there's a particular bit that you want to hear, you can just use the timestamps to navigate your way through without listening to a load of garbage along the way. Okay, in other news, and it is going to be a slightly shorter pod today, due to it being a little bit delayed, and of course we're going to make sure that we cover the lineup and all the rest of it on tomorrow morning's episode. But in other news, as was initially reported by James Ollie, Arsenal have agreed a deal to sign the 16-year-old Ecuadorian twins Edwin and Holger Quintero from Independiente del Valle. The agreement is in place after the Quintero brothers traveled to London this week to join Arsenal. The deal will only become valid when they turn in 18, I beg your pardon, which is in 2027. So what do we know about these two kids? Absolutely nothing is the answer. But based on some of the things I've read over the course of the last 24 hours since this story and since this news initially broke, it sounds like they're an exciting pair in terms of the way that they play the game. It sounds like there are a couple of guys who are going to bring a flair and an energy. And it's good to see Arsenal, A, scouring the South American market, where I think there's always gems to be found, but B, looking at the future-proofing the squad, because we're in a great place right now with the squad, with the ages of our players, the age profiles, etc., etc. But if you don't look around, if you're not proactive in this sort of thing, you can easily find yourself 3-4 years down the line saying, shit, that crept up on me. All of a sudden, my best players are coming into their kind of late 20s, early 30s. We're not quite the same as a team anymore in terms of energy levels. The value of all of those players has declined dramatically because of their ages, and we don't know what's coming next. And then you can be in a position where you have to do a whole new rebuild. Whereas if you can keep refreshing, keep adding to your group in terms of young and exciting prospects, then hopefully those transitions that you will have to face anyway are less dramatic and less problematic as a result. But yeah, look, I'd be lying if I said to you that I know anything about these two kids. Maybe we'll do some sort of scouting session on them and we can talk about them in the coming weeks. But right now, with the games coming thick and fast, I prefer to focus on the football than the transfers. But apparently there is an agreement in place. They traveled to London this week to join up with Arsenal, and they will return and take part with our club once they turn 18 in 2027. And credit to James Ollie for that story. He initially reported it. Okay, I do want to touch on one other thing before I sign out. As I said, it is a slightly shorter pod today, but there is one other thing that I want to cover off before I say goodbye to you this afternoon. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review and check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Chronicles of a Gooner. There is a new Patreon episode available to you all now. And also a call out to all our existing patrons. There's still quite a few of you that haven't joined the Discord server. If you don't want to join the Discord server, that's absolutely fine. But if you do want to, it is there. It is one of the benefits of being a patron. So take advantage of it. If you need the link again, which I've sent around in the patron groups, you should have had it in your DMs as a patron on the Patreon app or website. If you're lost, can't find it, let me know via Patreon, and I'll provide that link once again for you guys. Okay, let's take... Let's just take a look. You know what? I was going to have a quick look at the comments, and it's great to see people saying hello to each other. How are you? Love that. Love that. Shows we got a bit of a community here, which I absolutely love. So, yeah, Nice to see that, rather than people having a pop at each other, which is normally the case in YouTube live chats, including this one, to be fair. Anyway, there's one other thing I wanted to cover off, and I wanted to cover off claims that Enzo Fernandez was offside in the sort of in the lead up to the Chelsea goal against us at the weekend, and that the PGMOL should have pulled it up at the time and they should have disallowed the goal. Okay, so my way of looking at this is very, very simple. If I didn't spot this until the next day, I didn't go looking for it, if I'm honest. Like, I didn't scour over that goal over and over again. If I didn't spot it till the next day and it took Sky Sports News to post something about it the following afternoon for most people to wake up to it, then was it a clear and obvious error? No, it wasn't. I'm past the excuses stuff. We will call out diabolical refereeing decisions and performances when we're on the receiving end of them. I'll always ask for consistency with that. I know it's very, very difficult to achieve, but it should be the standard that everybody's looking for. I'll always call things out. But in terms of the whole kind of excuse-making thing, I don't want to do that this season. I've said it already. We've got the squad. We've got the players. We've got the experience now. Let's go and do it. And we cannot afford to feel sorry for ourselves, right? Because let me tell you this, that Chelsea goal on the day, you're going to say I'm crazy. I said this on yesterday's pod as well. That benefited us. You know why? Because it gave Chelsea something to hold on to. It gave Chelsea something to sit back and protect. And I know they were down to 10 men at that point, and maybe they'd have reverted to that kind of operating model anyway. But we played poorly for large periods of that game at Stamford Bridge. For large periods of that game, we stunk the place out. Now, how much of that is down to Chelsea being good and us not being able to live with them versus us just being crap? That's up to you to decide. People will have varying opinions on that, and that's absolutely fine. But let me tell you this, okay? If we're going to win a Premier League title or a Champions League or any of the big ones for that matter, this excuse-making culture has got to go in the bin. Okay. Last season, it was the injuries, rightly so. Okay. This season, there are injuries, but do you know what? We've put things in place to be able to live with that and to cope with that. I'm not saying it has no impact. I think it should be always included in your analysis, and the context is always important, but it cannot be an excuse. Okay. The time for excuses is done. That's in the past. Forget about it. Okay. At points when we were fragile and these sort of calls went against us, costing us in a way that we couldn't recover from, we called them out, okay? But now we're in a position where there are no excuses anymore. Let's go out and achieve what we want to achieve, because we're not going to do that if we're super focused and caught up in bad decisions, bad calls, etc., etc. We did not deserve to win the game at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. We got out of there with a point. It's not ideal. We take it on the chin. We move on, all focus on Brentford. I don't want to be, you know, looking back in a month's time and going, oh yeah, but what about that goal that Chelsea scored? First of all, okay, it's not, yeah, okay, he's standing in an offside position, but we've seen so many debates unfold in the Premier League over the last few weeks about whether or not a player was interfering. And this would fall into that category of, some people will say, oh yeah, he is interfering because he prevents Mosquera from getting to the ball. Others will say Mosquera wasn't getting there anyway. Whatever decision is made, it's one of those that's going to divide opinion, and there's going to be loads and loads and loads and loads of arguments back and forward, and we're never actually going to reach a general consensus. As I say, bottom line, if it took me till the next day to spot it, and I watch all the Arsenal games back, then how can I now sit here 2 days after the event and say, oh, the PGMOL are an absolute disgrace? They are a disgrace for many other reasons, and they are an organization that requires reform and that has not done a good enough job of handling the Premier League and overseeing the officiating in the Premier League for a long, long time now. I've got really strong thoughts on the PGMOL and how they operate, okay? But this is not the one I'm going to go after them for. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, right. Going to love you and leave you. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you've got any questions, we'll pick them up on tomorrow's pod when we got a little bit more time. Remember, patrons, there's an episode available to you guys on the Patreon feed right now. So go over and check that out. Talking about emotional intelligence. And I talk a lot about the excuse stuff in that episode. It's probably why it was fresh in my mind. Go over, check it out. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, like, hype, subscribe. On your way out, if you're listening on audio, leave us a review. Sign up on Patreon if you'd like to support the pod and get access to more content, as well as every single episode that is out in public without the ads. Yes, without the ads. I know that means a lot to a lot of people. I'll see you all on the next one. Take care. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.